Ladies and gentlemen, in this Red Gamer TikTok video, we're going to be discussing Microsoft's plans as they look to unify the development process for Xbox One, Windows 8, and of course Windows Phone environments. Currently, all three platforms are very insular, but Microsoft plans to allow developers to just pretty much develop an application for one and then be able to easily deploy it to all the other devices. We know that the CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, of course, is going to be leaving pretty soon. And at an analysts meeting, a financial analyst meeting, he remarked the first of those beliefs is that we really should have one silicon interface for all of our devices. We should have one set to developer APIs on all our devices, and all of the apps we bring to end users should be available on all our devices. We want to facilitate the creation of a similar experience across all these devices, but fundamentally tailored and unique experiences for each device. We should have one set of developer APIs on all of our devices. Of course, it comes as no surprise that Microsoft are pushing towards that. We know that they've said numerous times that they want to become a more services and device orientated type of company, and that's one of the reasons that Steve Ballmer is actually leaving Microsoft, because he wants to leave it to someone he feels is better able to lead Microsoft into and pioneer these new technologies. This is another point where they, of course, are pushing, for example, the Windows Azure package. And Xbox One is just one example of how they believe their vision is going to unfold. Of course, the Xbox One is going to allow you to run many different applications simultaneously. And there is a couple of things to note. I mean, one of the big ones is, of course, there are going to be issues such as different screen sizes. And therefore, there is going to have to be some optimization for the more serious, the more larger, the more task-orientated applications. There's no one that's going to be able to, for example, create a title that's going to be able to, say, play a game as well on the... Oh, let's go with Xbox One as what it can on a phone or a PC. In other words, of course, that's just not going to happen. But for smaller applications, it does make sense to start unifying these development platforms, because obviously a lot of them are really utilizing very similar architectures now in terms of the software side of things. And if they could do this, of course, it does help to encourage developers onto their platforms. Currently, Microsoft, of course, bought out Nokia. And with the acquisition of Nokia, of course, they are hoping to start becoming real serious players in the cell phone market, where currently it's, of course, being dominated by Android devices, for example, from, say, Samsung or HTC, and then, of course, you've got Apple's own dominance as well. Microsoft have not really been able to forge their way into the market as maybe as they expected, and despite the fact that Windows phones do have some nice features, it's just not quite there yet. So obviously with the acquisition of a already established manufacturer such as Nokia, it will help, but they still have some way to go, especially with the cloud type of API. For example, the recent Office 365 is just an example of how they are starting to push their services towards a cloud-based distribution. The theory behind all of this, as someone who uses Windows Azure, is that you can actually very easily develop and deploy an application to a cell phone. But what they are really hoping, of course, is to maybe create lightweight applications which will run on the client, but then a lot of the heavy processing, particularly on, say, cell phones, is done on the back end on their own Azure servers. And that does make an awful lot of sense. On PCs, it doesn't really matter quite as much, but on, say, cell phones or low-power devices, say notebooks even, it can really make that extra difference and cut down on processing power, which can help to, for example, if you're in a meeting or you're just doing whatever. It can also help, for example, with future applications on the Xbox One, where of course there's still finite resources on processing, because obviously not all of the resources can be dedicated to something like, I don't know, Office or Outlook or whatever. A lot of that will have to be pushed towards gaming. So it's going to be very interesting to see just how they're going to start to integrate all of these different services and different offerings in terms of API. Anyway, I think that's just about it for this particular video. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.